Alrighty. Hi there, my name is Alex Canals, and I did my presentation on Harry Truman. Alright, so who was Harry Truman? Harry Truman, he started off, he was born in Missouri on May 8th, 1884. He actually grew up on a farm and he was a mule trader. He was from a very poor family, and he decided he kind of wanted to do something a little bit more, so he decided to join the military at a young age. Throughout his career in the military, he was able to capture the respect of the men and women that he served with throughout his career. He then went on to become a judge, which he then went on to be elected to the United States Senate in 1934. He was elected as vice president to Franklin D. Roosevelt, and he actually became president in 1945 when President Roosevelt died of a stroke. He actually only served as vice president for 82 days, and he is probably most known for dropping the two atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima and one on Nagasaki in Japan, ending World War II. All right. So President Roosevelt passes away after 4 terms in office, leaving Vice President Truman in charge of the country. So he's coming in the wake of war. He actually didn't even have knowledge of the atomic bombs at the time. So he was really kind of coming into a lot after President Roosevelt passed away. Germany also surrenders during this time on May 7th, 1945. Germany actually signed an unconditional surrender in France to kind of put an end to World War II. The New York Times actually published an article after Germany surrendered saying that the war in Europe has ended. Harry Truman also had a then famous speech announcing the surrender of Germany, providing people with hope that World War II would come to a close. And the atomic bombs. So on August 6th, 1945, actually, during World War II, that's when an American bomber dropped the world's first atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The explosion actually killed about 90% of the city and immediately killed 80,000 people. Tens of thousands more would actually later die of radiation exposure, so the death toll was pretty massive. 3 days later, then a second atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, killing an estimated 40,000 people, and that's when Japan then unconditionally surrendered in World War II. So some of Truman's main objectives were to eliminate communism. In 1947, he actually pledged that the United States would help any nation resist communism in order to prevent the spread of it throughout other nations. One of his other goals was actually to rebuild the economy. When he took over office, the economy was kind of geared towards the needs of the war. So post-war, he really needed to kind of rebuild the economy to those post-war needs. He also focused a lot on national security. He started a project that was called the Truman National Security Project. And this is where an organization of frontline civilians, veterans, political professionals, and policy experts would conduct education and advocate work on national security and foreign policy issues in the United States. And also the formation of the United Nations took place. That was on October 24th, 1945, and that was formed to promote kind of international cooperation, as most of you probably know. So kind of the general public's response to Harry Truman at first, he was a, kind of a really likable guy. Everybody, that's kind of how he worked his way up the ladder, kind of into office there under Roosevelt. But coming into what he did, he didn't really leave office that popular. He left presidency in January of 1953, and he was actually one of the most unpopular politicians in the history of the United States. With the Korean War, there was accusations of corruption in his administration. So his reputation was not very good upon leaving office. However, actually upon leaving office, he started to rebuild that reputation a little bit. People started to realize, or they started to see him again as kind of what he was, where his roots came from, as kind of that middle American man, that everyday man, born in Missouri, hard worker. So people started viewing him as that, rather than a politician. All right. So some of the outcomes under Truman, he was really an advocate for foreign policy. He was also known for the Truman Doctrine, which in 1947 that would provide political, military, and economic assistance to all democratic nations under threat from external or internal forces. He led the American people post-depression, and the atomic bomb, obviously still probably the most important part of Truman's presidency. He was warned by some of his advisors that any attempt to invade Japan would result in horrific American tragedy. Therefore, he ordered the launch of the atomic bombs. Nobody's ever seen such a thing. There hasn't been anything like it since. Probably because they're weapons of mass destruction, and as you can see, thousands upon thousands of people die. So in reflection here, President Truman, he pursued a lot of things. He also pursued equal justice. Actually, one of his quotes was, "All men are created equal, and they have the right to equal justice under the law." So that kind of really stuck with me, with all the civil rights stuff going on in this time. He really kind of put his foot in the door and tried to put an end, to some of that was going on. And just his crisis leadership, I thought, was pretty impeccable coming into the situation that he did. When Roosevelt died, a couple weeks and 12 weeks into his fourth term, and Truman took over the most powerful job, when he had frankly no idea. The whole atomic bomb thing was kind of swept under the rug and kind of kept from him, so he didn't know. And within 4 months of his presidency, he had to pretty much give one of the biggest orders in United States history to drop those bombs on the two cities of Japan, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Truman was very aware of what he did. He took full responsibility for it, which I thought was a extremely true testament to his character, and showed how good of a man Harry Truman actually was. He took full responsibility, and he actually said, "The blood is on my hands," which, like I said, I think that is extremely true to this man's character. And despite not being a very popular political figure, I think he's a great leader. Thank you.